Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hunt Lift Eat podcast, brought to you by Hunt Lift Eat Official. Carter and Dan back at it again with another fantastic Texas native coming on as our esteemed guest this week, Dan. That's 2 in a row, man.
Yeah, man, we're killing it with the Texas crew.
Killing it. It's a great state. Seems like a great state over there. And we'll make that connection here in a second, but we want to welcome Kam Malnar to the podcast today. So, Kam, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank y'all so much. I'm stoked to be here and, chat about what I do, what we do at the ranch, and, how we're rocking and rolling down here, prepping for whitetail season in Texas. And, I'm just ready to share what I'm passionate about with you guys and whoever's willing to listen.
Heck yeah. It was cool. Dan got linked up with a mutual friend of yours, Chris Abigail.
Yes, we love Chris. She was actually just out at the ranch I manage doing a butchery demo for an all-women's axis hunt that we posted. It was our first annual. It was a really, really great event, and she's always a big hit, and the ladies loved her. That connection between hunting and then the food that you eat, especially for women, being able to share that trophy and feed your friends and family, and her bridging that gap. It was a big hit, and she's so knowledgeable, so great. We love her. And a hoot. She's hilarious.
Yeah, she's a total pro. You met her down in Texas too, right, Dan?
Yeah, I met her down there when I was down there with the folks from The Way We Hunt. She did a one-day butcher seminar, and like I said, she's a riot. She's so funny and so knowledgeable. It was great to hang out with her.
Yeah, as soon as we got off that episode, she was like, "Hey, you gotta look up my friend Kam. Like, you gotta hit her up. She's doing such cool stuff over there at the ranch." And I was like, "Cool, let's get her on. That sounds awesome." So, real quick, can you give us like a rundown of what it is you do? It seems like you wear a lot of hats, Kam.
Yes. And I think if you talk to pretty much any ranch manager, they would tell you the same thing. So I grew up hunting and fishing with my dad. Mom was all for it. She wasn't actively hunting, but she was very supportive. And so I told my dad I wanted to be a wildlife biologist from the time I was 5 because I was obsessed with Jeff Corwin. I don't know if y'all remember that. Yeah,
Oh,
right? He's so cool.
Yeah.
But over, the course of high school and college, it was kind of drilled into me, like, you're not going to make a living. You're going to be a starving artist, pretty much. And so I ended up going into oil and gas. But while I was in college, I was guiding hunts because I was broke. Typical college student stuff, and I ended up making some friends. I had a mentor with Parks and Wildlife Department, and they kind of introduced me to more of the high-end hunting, and that led me here. I've guided at some of the big ranches in Texas, the big corporate, ranches you see on Google as soon as you look up high fence hunting Texas. It took a lot of the knowledge that I gained at those places on, operations and client experience, all the way down to, dining and having toiletries in the bathroom on top of hunting. Because hunting is, I always say, 20% of the job, and the sales and marketing and administration and animal husbandry are the other 80%, right? But current day, like I said, I'm managing a high fence hunting ranch and breeding facility. We focus on breeding pedigreed fallow, axis, and black buck. And then we have our customer facing, hunting side of things. And so basically, yeah, a lot of hats. I'm guiding hunters, selling hunts, doing all of our marketing. I have 2 ranch hands that help me out, and I have a good connection with quite a few guides that I use if the groups are big or for some reason I'm elsewhere. So it's a lot, but I enjoy what I do. Of course, I wouldn't do anything else. Hence switching from oil and gas to just going both feet in the deep end and saying, I can do this myself. I can make a living. And it turned out being, the best choice I could have made for myself. And then on top of the hunting, we of course have our breeding. We do a lot of live animal trapping, which is really big here in Texas. Most of the exotic game that you see in other states, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, come from Texas. Um, so that's really neat. And that is really my favorite part of my job, as much as I love hunting. But seeing what we're breeding, grow into something really special, and then sending it off to a new ranch and kind of making a name for, our operation that comes out of a little tiny town in East Texas. So
That's fantastic. That sounds like 3 full-time jobs, honestly.
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
say, oh, I have a flexible schedule. I make my own schedule, but the schedule's full. So,
Yeah. I get it. I work at a small private school, and when you don't have a lot of people on staff that you do at big giant public schools, people wear a lot of hats, right? And I love teaching and I love coaching sports, but I feel like a lot of my job too is like the customer service aspect, because it's private school and people are paying for a product, right? And they're
right.
paying significant amounts of money, and that kind of sounds very similar to your situation when you have some clients, and down to the minute details of the toiletries, like you mentioned, in the bathroom, and creating the best experience you can for your clients, right?
And that's one thing, like coming from that big, corporate ranch, there is a disconnect in providing those services for your customers. It's highly competitive here in the state. I always say it's the largest small industry. It's, highly competitive. Everybody knows everybody. What will set you apart that will bring in customers, but of course, retain customers? And outside of the, business aspect, people are coming, making memories with their family, with their colleagues. And I get a lot of first time hunters, a lot of kids. So I want to make sure that, everybody feels welcome and comfortable enough. We're still hunting. It's still rugged, regardless of, the high fence lure that, it's shooting fish in a barrel. It's not that way. I'm sure some are, but I don't run an operation like that. But yeah, it's just important to make sure that people feel comfortable and with me and at the ranch itself, so they feel like they can come back and bring their friends and family.
No, that's a great point. That's one thing. I started guiding really young out here in Colorado, guiding waterfowl hunts, and I learned quick that it is very much a customer service industry. Um, People can have an unsuccessful hunt, per se, but when you take them out in the afternoon because the birds aren't flying to shoot clay pigeons or buy the first round of beers at the bar or whatever, it really kind of keeps that retention of clients back. And a lot goes into the customer service side of it. I totally understand that.
Oh, amen. And a hunter knows that you're hunting. You're not always going to be successful with their wild animals. I always joke like, oh, I didn't tie him to the tree this weekend.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. But yeah, like you said, good food, good company, just going out of your way to make people know that you care, that they're having a good time or not, goes a long way. So I feel you totally. Because it was when I started guiding, it's one thing to know deer and hunt, but being able to sit in a box or a vehicle with one person for multiple hours at a time, you have to, be able to shoot the breeze with just about all walks of life and
Yeah.
show them a good time. But yeah,
Yeah.
so I totally feel you.
That's super cool. And like, what does well, first of all, the name of the ranch is Prime Time, correct?
Yes.
And you're in which part of Texas?
So we're in deep Northeast Texas. So I always say if you head from Houston towards Dallas, about halfway there, go east. And we're a little tiny town called Love Lady.
Love Lady.
Love Lady, Texas. Yeah. Thriving metropolis.
The booming city of Love Lady, Texas, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We actually, so our main facilities in Love Lady, that's where we lodge all of our customers. And then we have another facility in Leeches, which is about 30 miles northeast. And it's another 650 acres. that we use for hunting, and we're eventually going to put a lodge there, but we keep different species there, a lot more African game. We have a lot more plains, pasture land for them to graze. It just works out better for us. And, our clientele likes being able to go between the two and see different things and not just stay in one location, the entire time that they're there. I mean, it is a big ranch, both of them, but it's just kind of cool. A little treat for them to see something different.
Yeah, for sure, right? And that's what you want, right? You want the experience, and you want to see and experience things that you don't get to back home, right? That's one of the beauties of traveling to go hunt, whether you, like Dan alluded to, right, successful, right? You can have that without the kill, whether you kill something or not. That's all part of the package.
Yes, sir. Amen.
That's cool. So what does, walk me through this. I'm super curious, right? Because Dan and I might quit our jobs tomorrow and go try and do something like this.
Come on.
What what is what does a typical day look like for you at prime time?
Um, so every day is different. I always say that. If I have a hunt, early morning, I'm picking up groceries or letting a chef in and bringing customers in and taking them to the range, getting sighted in, making sure everything's good, especially if they've traveled, and hunting, eating, hunting, sleeping, eating, hunting, sleeping. But more so, it depends on the season. So we're in summer right now. It is brutally hot. We're 100 degrees every day. We do have hunters because it's prime axis hunting season for us. I say season, but it is the rut. So it's been pretty busy for us. But if we're not hunting, a lot of hunt prep. So we focus a lot on what we're feeding our animals. So we do change throughout the season. So like fall, we'll feed cottonseed. Summer, we're strictly protein. I turn off corn and pick up corn again in September. But typical day to day, I mean, for instance, this week I was catching black buck off of a neighboring ranch for them. They called us in, said, hey, we want to sell you these deer. We have way too many. So, going in, setting up the trap, running that camera, it's all remote. I can drop the trap from my phone, live loading those deer, getting them to the customer, taking payment, getting back home, unloading the trailer. That's what the last few days have been. It's been brutal. It's been hot. I got my butt kicked 3 days in a row. Literally, you can't see it, but I'm rocking a shiner. The makeup's covering it up. I tried my best, but and then of course administrative invoicing, procurement, marketing, Texas Parks and Wildlife, making sure all of our permits are in order, government subsidies. It's not cheap, to run a ranch. And if I can help my landowner save a little bit of money and better the property, that's what I'm there for, So there's just so many things that go into it, but it's a blast. I'm not sitting behind a desk. I'm driving or taking pictures or catching deer or working with a biologist or whatever the case may be. But it's always something different.
Yeah, you don't look bored, right? And I saw on your Instagram that you did take a black buck to the face this week, and I was like, whoa, that's gnarly. What a crazy day at work.
Yeah. So we, especially in the heat, we try not to dart. It raises their internal temperature. So we created kind of a funnel system, and we're live loading them into the trailer, kind of just pushing them out of the trap. It's like a 30 by 30 trap, so it's not small. But we got one closed in, everything went in the trailer, and this little guy, he was not having it. Jumped about 10 foot in the air and kicked me coming down. Yeah, so my ranch hand, Clayton, bless his heart, one of the little horns on the yearling ripped his pants from the zipper all the way up the back, just to be a fly on the wall. If y'all are ever in Texas, I'll take y'all out. We'll go catch some deer because it's brutal, but it's fun. It's hunting, but they wake back up.
Right.
So
I'll video Dan. I want to see him chase a black buck around.
Me, I grew up in the ag industry, chasing cows and horses my entire life. So I think black bucks or deer little bit more squirrely, I think that'd be a funner fight.
Yeah, yeah. So you would have been proud then, because yesterday we had a little bit more of a difficult time. So we ran out of darts for the ones that were left over that we needed to catch. So we brought out the ropes. So we were healing
Oh,
little black buck in the alley. So we got tore up, let me tell you. But it was a blast. We could have used you
that'd be a
cowboying
new
out
one for
there.
me, but I'd be all about it. You let me know when you want to do that again, and I'll be there.
Heck yeah, man. I mean, it's year round.
That's
That'd be a
awesome.
blast.
Yeah.
Um, so what about your guys' breeding that you're doing over there? Is that a year round thing, or how do you guys manage that?
So it is on the back side of our other facility, the one that I had mentioned. It's a lot more rural. The one in Loveladies off of a highway makes it easy for people traveling in to get there. The one in Weeches, we have breeder pens. So we have 10 pens, each an acre or 2 acres a piece, and then an alley running down the middle and around the sides so we can move deer or vehicles through there to, fill feeders or water, whatever the case may be. Um, like I said, we have a pedigreed fallow. So we have one sire and a whole bunch of pedigree does. It's like horse breeding. Um, people here in Texas, they know the big names, for whitetail, fallow,
Like
axis, but
like family lineage
yes,
names.
yeah. So
Oh
So
no way.
are they
mhm,
they papered like
they
horses
are.
are? Oh,
Mhm.
oh damn. Okay.
So, like, there's a registry. I'm actually leaving in the morning to go to a big conservation auction for Exotic Wildlife Association. And so they are the entity that you register your exotic game with. So they do fallow, axis, kudu, sika, and a couple others. And yeah, so every time a baby is born, I pluck it and pull hair and tag it, send that hair in, and I get a certificate, and it's logged into my portal. So if I sell that baby, or if he has you know, impregnates a doe and I end up selling their offspring, I can show my customer this is what you're getting, and this is what his dad looked like, and his grandpa looked like, and his mom came from this pedigree. So it's really neat.
That's so cool.
It,
Identical to the equine and cattle industry. So that's crazy. I didn't know that was a thing.
yeah, and a lot of people don't know that that exists. And being a smaller ranch, you can't have all your eggs in one basket,
Hmm.
honestly. Hunting is great, but a lot goes into if people are spending that kind of money. It's an election year. I've seen that it's gotten a little slower. I mean, we're still very busy, but a lot of the companies that would usually bring, staff or customers, they're holding off till next year. So
Interesting.
the live sale and capture of like our excess does in the pasture or our breeding stock, um, it's income when hunting is a little slower, and it's also ranch replenishment.
Hmm.
So keeping a balanced herd is really important on a high fence ranch. You don't want it overgrazed. You don't want animals fighting or procreating when they shouldn't be. And so if we, grow something really special, we can turn it out to pasture once, it's a year old and it goes totally wild. It'll be there for the next 4 years doing its thing. And, you know, it kind of covers some of that overhead that some ranches face, having to purchase animals from people like me to stock their ranch to allow people to come hunt. So there's a lot of behind the scenes with that. Not all ranches are growing their own deer in the pasture. Um, and so that's something that we really try to push as well because we have a lot of pasture born deer, our axis, our black buck, our fallow, they're born there. So and that's not common.
That's fascinating. I'm looking at it through the lens of like Texas is its own beast and entity when it comes to the hunting and outdoor space anyways, and this is another testament to that. I'm looking at this through the lens of like gun dog pedigrees here on the East Coast. I'm from Georgia, right? So like that's a big deal when you're trying to get a and whatever kind of dog for whatever type of bird you're trying to chase, and that's well, it was this was the father and this was the grandfather and he was this champion and this blah blah blah, and the pedigree is like a huge deal, right? So is that like a really good way to get on the radar of other ranches in the same kind of space if you grow a particularly stud or impressive
Yes.
deer?
So you'll hear, if you talk to people in the breeder space, legends is what they call them. So
Legends.
people know, like in fallow bullwinkle, he's a legend, right? There's whitetail, blackjack, or whatever the case may be. And so, you know, the auction I'm going to tomorrow, they'll be selling semen straws for some of the legends to AI does in a breeder facility. So when they have babies, they can turn them out on their ranch. Um, Breeding is highly competitive as well. So having those genetics in your herd automatically give you a little bit of street cred.
Yeah.
And even just, end users, the buyers, they see those names and they're like, okay, I don't really know like all the does and everything, but they have those genetics. So I feel more inclined to spend a little bit more on those.
Do people get a little nefarious and try and cut corners and like, I don't know, do things not the right way in the breeding deer
Yes.
breeding world? I
Um,
imagine it's gotta happen, right?
yeah, I mean, they're everywhere, right? I think more so I mean, there's rumors of,
Right.
you know, injecting deer with things that make their antlers grow, larger, faster, certain hormones, and then their offspring that somebody paid a lot of money for, they don't produce. But
Mm,
I'll be straight up honest with you. I don't know if that's somebody making it an excuse because their feed program is trash, or if
right.
it's actually happening. Maybe I'm lucky and I've just dealt with some really good folks. And maybe I'm not shady, so shady people are like, we're not going to deal with her. But, for the most part, I'd say 99% of people in this industry are good. I mean, these are the good old boys. And I mean, even the hunters, I mean, you're on vacation. You're coming to hunt and enjoy the outdoors with people you care about. So, I mean, I can count on one hand in the last 9.5 years, just the blacklist type folks.
That's
But
cool.
everybody else is pretty good.
That's sweet. Because you hear about like outfitters, right? I'm from Georgia, right? So like trying to find the right outfitter to go elk hunting or mule deer hunting or whatever. Like some outfitters have not so great reputations, some have stellar reputations, right? And you have, um, you can call prior clients and get the lowdown from the more reputable ones. But um, one thing you mentioned was like you take your clients to go shoot when they get there, and I think that's huge, right? I think that's a huge like green flag when it comes to picking a place that you want to go hunt at. Because we had an experience at a place in Colorado last year where we weren't hunting with the outfitter, but we had permission to access some public through that outfitter, so we got to stay in camp. But a lot of guys came from all over the country, spent a ton of money, and then were just like sending bullets all over the place at things, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It didn't feel very I don't know. There wasn't a lot of prep or anything behind that, and the outfitter wasn't necessarily driving.
It just feels dirty. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
It's not ethical. Like, how do you feel comfortable sending that many bullets out? I always joke and say, I'm like, this is not Billy Bob's deer camp. We're
right.
not getting drunk and shooting the
Yeah,
sky,
yeah.
because ultimately I'm like, I care about these deer and these animals. And like, I've outfitted, when I started my career, I was taking every guide job. I was taking pig hunters, hog hunters, and it doesn't pay much, but just taking any work I could get because it's not hard, or I mean, it's not easy as a 19-year-old female to break in when it's a bunch of guys that have worked together forever. And I know I don't look the part. And so it ended up working out great, but I always wanted to, make sure that we did it the right way because it is so much harder. People were looking at me and expecting me to mess up. So if I messed up, it was 10 times worse. So shooting before you go, um, not getting just so drunk that
Yeah,
I'm worried riding in the Ranger next to you. Just
yeah.
little things. Have fun, do your thing. but these are animals that I watch and I care about, and I want to preserve that heritage, that I grew up with, hunting with my dad. That you respect what you kill. You don't shoot something that you're not going to be proud of and use. Things like that, and that kind of sets us apart, I think. And I really try to push that to our customers, like, hey, if you need help, I'll help you and I'm going to guide you, actually guide you, right? You can be a
Yeah.
guide and just go drop somebody off in a blind, especially in Texas. We're not doing that. And I'll tell you, like, like if you're comfortable, yeah, but I wouldn't take that shot, things like that. It goes a long way with people, especially being a woman, and women want to come hunt. They want to be helped. And, dads with their daughters or dads with their sons, they'll tell me, I'm a little impatient, and I don't want them to feel pressured with me. Can you help my son? He's 8. It's his first time away from mom, things like that.
Yeah.
But ethics, big deal. And I kind of went off on a tangent there, but with outfitting, um, I learned a lot through those years. And now being on one ranch, you kind of figure out what people like, what works, and um, you can tailor an experience at a ranch just like you would as an outfitter, but you're comfortable with your surroundings. And I really
Mhm.
try to push that. And I have nothing against, outfitters, but when people are looking for a hunt, I say, I'm not an outfitter. We're a
Hmm.
ranch and I can customize something for you. We're flexible. You're not going to have 60 people out there hunting. Um, so you can come out here and, we can give that same feel that you would like booking with an outfitter. You don't feel like you're coming to a business, um, but still give them that, that level of service, and they can feel laid back like they would, going out with an outfitter to a ranch they don't know.
Mhm.
No, that's awesome. And I think one thing that you said that really resonated with me is just making them feel comfortable, right? You might have that kid or that woman or even a man that, is new into it and everything. And it's already a very it's a daunting task, right? If you've never hunted before and being in that environment where you're comfortable, somebody gets you on the range before you guys go out and hunt, checks zeros, things happen, they get bumped around when we travel. It's just a confidence booster and just makes that environment so much more comfortable. That's great that you guys really focus on that.
Yeah, I mean, I was taught that way, and I want the upcoming generation, or like, I always say adult onset hunters,
Yep.
which I think is really cool because I've seen an influx of that. Um, I want them to be able to come with me and then actually learn something. I'm not going to push it down your throat, but I'm going to do it the right way and take from it what you will. So if you want to go somewhere else or you want to go try and hunt public and draw a tag, you have a little bit more confidence. And if you had a good time and you learned something and you end up wanting to come back, great. That's my goal. And I tell people too, if this isn't a good fit, no harm, no foul. I'll refer you to somebody. I'm just not that kind of gal that's gonna, gatekeep customers if they're not happy, whatever the case may be. But yeah, we really just try to drive that home, doing it the right way, but still having fun. You're on vacation, but you can
Right.
still be safe and ethical.
For sure. And whether you're the most experienced or the least experienced, right? There's a space for that kind of person at this ranch that you're talking about. And like, if I'm super experienced and I just want to, hey, well, I'm on vacation, I want to relax, right? Like that's something that you can and tailor and provide. And it's got me thinking this conversation about ethics. Dan and I are Hunt Lift Eat. We're teaching a Learn to Hunt course in August, and I'm teaching a brief course on ethics to these 3 guys who have never hunted before. One adult onset hunter and his 2 kids, um, and I've been thinking a lot about what does that mean? Like, what are ethics? And sure, there's like your the definition and follow your state laws and regulations and have your license and hunter safety and everything that you have to do. But then like also the ethics that you're talking about, which is like your interpretation, doing things like you said, the right way, the way you were raised to do it. Not everybody's personal ethics always aligns that way. So that's, really refreshing to hear. And I want to drive that home with them. Like, your ethics will grow and change. Mine have, right? I didn't start hunting till I was 19 in college. And my ethics have changed throughout my hunting career, or whatever you want to call it, as I've learned more and gained more experience that way. So that's really good to hear that you're harping on that down there.
Yeah, and that, always that reminds me, speaking of, your ethics changing. Oh my gosh, my cat just came in here. Cut that out. No. But with ethics, they say, you start out when you're hunting and you're trying to shoot anything that walks, right? Because you're just so stoked to be there. And then you're more selective. And then you're a conservation based hunter. And then you graduate to sharing that with others, the progression of a sportsman. And I didn't understand my dad when he said, I don't really care to pull the trigger. I just want to sit with you guys.
Mm.
And so I get more worked up and more buck fever with some guy I just met yesterday in the box blind when he's about to shoot the deer of a lifetime than
Yeah.
I do, when I'm hunting for myself. Um, that's really cool, to share those moments with people because I know that, you know, my parents feel the same way about me. And it's just really neat. I mean, it's an intimate moment. I think hunting, not to go too deep, but I think it's instinctual.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, the need and want to hunt and be outdoors. Um, and so seeing people actually get to feel that, we're built to do it. I mean, it gets emotional. I mean, even for, Jim Bob, he's 63 years old, cowboy wearing overalls in the blind. I mean, and I always say too, if you're not a little bit emotional, you shouldn't be doing it. You know,
I agree.
if you feel nothing, you're taking a life. Like,
Yeah.
not to be all hippy dippy woo woo over here, but like you're taking a life and respect it. And if you're cold to it, reevaluate. And that goes back to ethics too. Like, why am I doing this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, I I had the blessing of growing up in a family of hunters, and don't get me wrong, I still like going out there and punching my own tags. But once I got into guiding and getting to see the look on folks' faces when they get their first harvest, I get it. It was super cool. And then my wife, she never hunted a day in her life until she met me, and fingers crossed she finally gets her first kill this year. Uh, but like last year, she drew back on a deer for the first time, right? Like just that alone was like successful hunt. Like I was
Yeah.
borderline in tears, a mess. I'm like that was so cool.
Oh, I know. And she's
Oh,
probably
yeah,
that feeling, pulling the bow back and you're shaking and you're like trying to
yeah,
not hold your breath. And,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that's awesome. That's
yeah,
successful in my book.
yeah, exactly. So I totally understand what you're saying there. That's right. And I agree. If you don't feel any sort of emotion like that, then you need to reevaluate a little bit.
And when it comes to feeling, Cam, you're in such a unique position, or at least in my realm and knowledge of folks in this space. How do I want to word this? You're not an observer, right? You're an active participant in all aspects of these animals' lives, right? More so than like just your average hunter, right? Like I go out there and people who hunt will understand this. Like I feel like I know and love deer better than whatever my neighbor down the street who like whatever puts out corn and likes looking at them in their backyard, right? But like we have an intimate relationship with these animals that we pursue and kill and then eat, right? And you have that a step further too, right? Being part of this, where they come into the world process, right? And catching and you know taking care of them, right? The husbandry part of these animals' lives, right? How is that kind of circle unfolded for you? I'm super curious about that.
A lot of people have asked me, and I always try to, have an answer. Um, I do feel like a closeness. And so I think that is what drives a lot of the ethics, bringing customers out, right? So I see the deer every single day. I know what they're eating. There is a separation though in the hunting and the breeding aspect. The
Gotcha.
the deer that I'm catching, they're going to a new ranch, a new home. You know,
Gotcha.
sometimes they've been going to preserves, they've been going to zoos, they've been going to hunting ranches. But one thing I will not do is take like deer that I've bought raised.
Hmm.
I don't care how much somebody offers me for them, they're not going to go be a pasture deer that's going to be shot.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a line that I won't cross. You know, I understand that deer that I'm catching off of my property that are excess, trying to keep the population balanced, they're going to go to another ranch and another hunter is going to be stoked, you know, to harvest that trophy, you know.
Yeah.
Um, it's I do think it's difficult, right? But there's still that like drive to want to go do it. I just think maybe in the grand scheme of things, I respect the animal more. Um, I see them just living, you know, every day, and I drive through there, and so I feel a little more connected because I'm out there. And I'll be honest with you, I feel a little more emotional when I, you know, pull the trigger or you know, fling an arrow at a personal harvest of mine than I did maybe, you know, 7, 8 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, because I do see and watch them live every day. And so I'm thankful for it. It can be difficult. Maybe that's just with age and being more, you know, emotionally sound, you know, not so just gung ho all the time. But I think I just appreciate them more and what they've given. Um, it's a complex feeling. I can't really describe it because you know, a lot of people have asked, and I've given a
Yeah.
different answer like every time. So,
No, I'm sure, and that makes a lot of sense, right? Like, I kind of, I kind of get where you're coming from, and like when I hunt my own farm here in Georgia, I didn't bottle feed any of them, but like you have a relationship, right? You're like, oh, I know they're going to come through at this time, and this guy's right. You fall into the giving names to certain bucks and things like that. And when I take new folks hunting, which is my new favorite thing in the world, like, oh, is that the one? I'm like, yeah, or we could just watch him, you know, like I
and I
love
always say
watching.
that too, that people ask me, they're like, you must hunt out there all the time and like shoot your target buck because you know, like you've patterned them. Like, I don't hunt here.
Yeah,
You know, I
right,
don't
right,
hunt
right.
here. And it helps me in my job. And even then, I still can't predict where they're going to be at all times. They're animals, right? Um, and we're not just a big opening. Like we have elevation and, you know, woods and creeks and ravines. And, you know, I actually don't have game cameras out. Um, I don't want to pretend for my hunters that we're hunting. We're hunting. I'm hunting with you.
Yeah,
And I think that's one thing that, you know, a lot of high fence ranches, they'll post a buck online and say, this is the price for this buck. We know exactly where he's going to be. Come shoot him. Um, just from being there, like I know where whitetail like to be, I know where axis like to be, but that's just being there and like any other hunter, um, going out scouting, right? But I don't want to know exactly where my customer's deer is every hour of the day. What feeder that takes the fun out of it, and I don't feel right doing that. So, you know, it's there's a lot of behind the scenes that go into it that the customer doesn't see, but that's one thing that's a non-negotiable for me.
I like that, right? And that falls into like your own personal ethics that can grow and change and be different from other folks, right? Like, you know, maybe I wouldn't shoot a spike on my own farm here, but boy, have I shot the world's smallest forky in Montana because I was down to the wire and I worked
It's
my
different,
tail off.
yeah.
Yeah, I worked my tail off, and that boy made me work for it. And I was more proud to have that little forky than anything I could ever hope for. And you're right, it is different and situational for sure.
Oh, for sure. So I didn't go last year, but me and a friend of mine I've known for many, many years. We take hunters down to Mexico. We have two ranches. We go down there, and it is hard hunting. It's 30,000 acres, low fence, hard hunting, just desertous.
Mule deer.
It's actually whitetail.
Okay.
We're not too far south, so it's mainly whitetail, a lot of javelina, a lot of hogs. But I tell you what, my 152, I'm the most proud of that deer. I've shot big deer, shot big exotics, but that deer that I worked for 4 days, it's like people are like, "Oh, you're mounting him." I'm like, hell yeah,
Without
mountain him. Like that's a story. And I was in Mexico. Come on. But
a
like at our place, I would shoot a 150, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a little different. A 150 and on a high fence, he's a year and a half old, 2 years
Right.
old. So it's not apples for apples, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Can you talk a little bit about kind of your habitat management and improvement? Like that's got to be a big part of your job as well, right? And you say you have different topographies and it's not just a big open
Yeah.
what.
So it's we're in Northeast Texas, like I said. Most of my career was spent in South Texas. So, Mesquite Flats, hill country, type terrain, a lot rockier. It was definitely a learning experience on the animal side, especially. So, it's a lot more wet. There's different parasites. We do deworm in feed in our protein twice a year and as needed. But with the habitat management, we have a program in Texas called MLD, Managed Lands Deer Program, and there's different levels to that. So we're MLD conservation. So basically, the state issues us tags um, for whitetail. X amount of doe tags based on surveys and X amount of buck tags. Whatever we shoot is up to us. But along with that, the state does require 3 wildlife management practices. So we do food plots. So we've cleared quite a bit of our native pine trees to make way for more grazing land. We do controlled burns to get rid of some of those pine needles and the debris so, natural forage can come back up. Like we have a lot of beautyberry now. We did a burn last year, and that's really helpful. Um, Water sources are big. Luckily, we have enough natural water, a lot of creeks. We have a big 14-acre lake, um, and we back up to the Neches River. With that being said, though, we are constantly dealing with floods.
Mm.
I'd say, we call it the bottom. It's about 65 acres. It was 8 foot underwater for about a month and a half. So we had a lot of washout. We are constantly on the skid steer, fixing that because the state does look at that too. Being MLD, we have to make sure that we're keeping our population in check, that we're not overgrazed, and that we're caring for the land that we're hunting on, or they take, our status away to be able to use those state issued tags. It's important even if the state wasn't looking at it, but so yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. But then we supplementally feed as well. But we do cut hay. We, plant Alice clover, oats, some winter mixes, just depending on, time of year and what the animals are needing and our population, what we have out there. So, and that does change too. So, we always have whitetail axis blackbuck, but there are times where like I come across wildebeest or, scimitar horned oryx, and so we have small herds of those right now. But if one of my trapper buddies calls me and he's like, hey, I got 2 heavy bred wildebeest cows, I'm like, all right, let's roll, bring them,
One.
So that kind of changes, feed and what is where, and if we're cutting and if we're planting something different or if we're just leaving the pasture native. Yeah, just what we have out there is what it depends on. Like I said, never the same thing.
Yeah, no
Always
shit.
something different.
That's so cool. Dan, this sounds like a great summer job opportunity.
Dude, I'm thinking full time. Like,
honestly, please, like I could use y'all's help.
That man can drive a skid steer for sure.
Perfect, because honestly, I can get by, but it's not my forte. You know what I mean?
The the ranch that I work on now, I end up a equipment operator and a dozer, skid steer, and excavator, something like that, more than I'm doing ranch work. It seems like anymore. So sign me up. I'm ready to go.
No, I feel ya. The first ranch I managed, I ended up leaving. Not a super great situation. I was there longer than I should have been, actually. But I should have known because my first week, the owner tells me, "Hey, I already booked these hunters." Like, so it doesn't tell me it's a bison hunt. So I'm the only one there, and I have a bison. And I'm like, okay, the guy's not answering the phone. I'm like, I need help. And I had no idea how to drive that tractor. But I'm like, this is the only way that I'm moving this thing,
Yeah.
and I had to like play it off because I'm on a new ranch, new boss, new customers. Like my customers, I would have been like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. Like, we're going to have to call on the big guns because I'm stuck here. But now I know how to drive a tractor and tie a bison to some forks. But yeah, definitely a necessity to know how to operate those things. And that was a learning curve, coming from one of those big corporate ranches, or just outfitting, you're never in charge of that, right? That's not your deal. You're not going to go mess with the landowner's skid steer.
Right.
And at those big corporate ranches, those guys, I mean, they have an operator and that is their job and you don't touch it. And so moving to, a smaller operation, where it's, three or four of us, you learn to do a lot of things.
A lot of
Um,
trial by fire.
oh, no, no, for sure. I always say, like, I don't know how to do it, but I'll figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Buffalo to the forks. Put that on my resume, right? That's
Yeah,
unique.
yeah, move bison with forks. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were stoked. I mean, they were on
Yeah.
the hunt high, you know, so they didn't really care that it took me, an hour to figure it out, but it was cold, so we were good. But
That's awesome. And something else you guys do that you're passionate about as well is kind of like you mentioned a little bit the mentorship, but the education side of things. You work with youth and a lot of women's groups too, right?
yes. So that's actually how I got started. When I decided I was going to go this route. Um, Texas Youth Hunting Program. It's near and dear to my heart. Um, that's kind of what made me fall in love with taking others hunting and really trying to preserve the hunting heritage. And so that program, you have to go through what they call hunt master training. And basically, you're running how the state wants you to run a hunt teaching youth, right? And there's some different insurance things, wearing hunter's orange. Because in Texas, we're 98% private. So you don't see the hunter's orange ever unless
Right.
you're on a drawn hunt or a Texas Parks and Wildlife hunt, like the youth program. Um, I fell in love with just, seeing those kids and like the parents with their kids shoot their first deer. And we had experienced hunters, maybe dad's in the oil field, they don't have time for a deer lease. So, they go for one of those hunts. But then we get single moms with,
Mm,
sons that want to hunt, but they have no idea where to even begin.
that's
Right.
so
Um, and so that was kind of the starting point. And working with that organization, eventually, I got connected with the Texas Wildlife Association Adult Learn to Hunt program. It's basically the same thing with beer, right? Um, no, but jokes aside, great program, same thing. And they have a really big focus on wild game cuisine and cooking what you kill. And habitat management and um, ethics and being someone that others can come to if they want to get into the outdoors, whether it be hunting, fishing, hiking, whatever. Just being kind of a bridge for people that maybe didn't grow up doing it or don't have the opportunity or exposure to the industry. um, that eventually, years go by, led into those or same organizations targeting all women or father son or people of color, whatever the case. And so we actually, that's where I met Chris. Yeah, was on an all
Yeah.
women's hunt through the state.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoy it. It's so rewarding. A lot of tears, of course, but it's really rewarding to have people come out and like walk them through the whole process, really, because, with a paid guided hunt, a lot of times they're like, I want to shoot the deer and I want to go hang out. And they're super happy and there's nothing wrong with that. But, these mentored hunts, they're learning how to sight their own gun in instead of me
Mm.
sighting it for you. And they want to break the animal down and know how to do it instead of, going inside and watching the football game. Like I said, nothing wrong with that, but it's just they want to know how to do it so they can go and do it somewhere else, and maybe come to a ranch like mine and feel comfortable. So that's kind of why I haven't seen tailored hunting experiences, and that's what I'm trying to do at prime time is offer those same educational experiences for whether it be women, like I said, father, son, or even just all men, and providing a whole experience. So the hunt, but then, like, for instance, I had the women's hunt. We had permanent jewelry. I had a girl come out and do, right? We did Chris's butchery demo. I had Chef Holly Hearn come out and do a cooking demo using strictly wild game. She used Axis backstrap because that's what the girls were killing. Um, and making it come full circle. And
Mhm.
so we plan on pushing that for a men's whitetail hunt. It's not going to be permanent jewelry. It's going to be a rugged whitetail hunt just like the rest, but I'm going to have whiskey and cigar pairings. And so instead of expecting people to come to me and saying I want to book this hunt, we're creating experiences where I say I have 8 spots for dudes that would like this. And this is
Mhm.
how much it costs for all
Yep.
of it, for 3 days. And I haven't seen any of that. And that kind of comes from, those mentored hunt programs. It's a little bit different. Instead of just waiting on some guy to call me for a day hunt, this is what we're doing that's different. Come check us out. But, um, and that's, I guess, another way of not getting too far from those mentored programs. Because they made me a better hunter. They made me a better teacher and listener. And I always say you learn something from everybody you hunt with, whether they've been doing it less time, more time, man, woman, child. If you're not listening and learning from your peers, you're not growing. So
Yeah.
I've learned better ways to do things or what doesn't work, and that's a learning experience too. So
Yeah. 100%. And hunting is one of those things where if you're not learning, you're not putting in the effort, right? You're never going to be at 100% knowledge, right?
never.
It's all out there, right? And it's all about experiences, right? I tell people like, don't worry about the money, go on the trips, right? I'm a school teacher, but like, you best believe I'm going somewhere every fall to go have an experience. Like, do it. You can make more money. That's what Luke, the guy who started this company, he says it all the time. Dan and I hear him say that. Like, you can always make more money. Just go do it.
It's normally when he's trying to get me to spend a large sum of money on a hunt or something like that. Dude, come on.
No, that's really cool. And, preserving it for the next generation is something that's incredibly important. Whether they're 8 years old or, new hunter coming to see you, Cam, and they're 30 years old or 40 or whatever, right? And I think that well-rounded experience is the best way to do that. The hands-on from sighting in the rifle to this is how you cook a really good meal with wild game, right? Because like I didn't get into cooking until I started hunting, and then I was like, well, the opportunities are endless here. I better get good at this if I'm going to be filling this freezer up
Mm-hmm.
with
Yeah, there's
whitetail.
so much more to life than a fried backstrap, I always say.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
so many ways to do it. And, um, it's not beef. It all is different. And I really try to drive that too. I just like to cook. But I agree with you. I'm kind of in the same boat. I always liked to cook, but it wasn't until I really started hunting often that was wanting to try new things and experiment with different wild game, you know.
Yeah, that's like the best part. What's your it is the Hunt Lift Eat podcast. What's your the eat aspect? What's like your go-to recipe and favorite wild game to eat?
So it's not fancy, but my favorite dish to make is Axis meatloaf. Um,
Axis loaf.
And I try to be healthy, try to like avoid the carbs. So I use pork rinds instead of crackers to bind the meat. And I don't, it's not your mom's meatloaf. It's
That's good.
right. I'm not
Not my
crazy about
favorite.
like
My
regular
mom's
meatloaf. Nothing against anybody's mama's, right? But I do like a brown sugar chili rub on top with honey, so it's like a caramelized, sweet, spicy. Have y'all eaten Axis?
Yeah, had
Okay,
the
yeah.
opportunity to go hunt them in Hawaii, and
Oh,
it is
that's
not
right.
whitetail. It is not it is not whitetail for sure.
No, favorite game by far, and then Oryx is actually my second favorite. I love whitetail because it's nostalgic, but the antelope species and the axis, people sleep on the antelope species. So like your Oryx, your Gibbs buck, black buck, um, it's so good, so good, and they're a
That's
lot larger, than a whitetail. So if people are like, "Hey, I want a bunch of meat," and I want it to be good. I'm like Oryx by far. So
That's crazy. That's like being in the same kind of family. Like eating antelope out here in Colorado or Wyoming. It's not really the most sought after meat folks are after. So that's cool. I'd be interested to try that.
yeah, it's pretty mild. I've heard about the pronghorn not being super great. I've never had it, but I'm willing to try it. I think, I mean, but down here, nobody will eat aoudad. Nobody will touch it. I mean,
really
Really?
that's a goat. So I mean, some people are weird about that, and some people are like, "Oh, you just have to like rub it with spices," and but a lot of folks are like, if I have to work that hard for it to be good, I don't even want to deal with it. But people love the hunt though, so like, I've never been on a free range aoudad hunt because I'm like, I don't like it, but I would love to do that hunt in the mountains of West Texas, but
yeah, me too.
it's hard for me. I don't know how I feel about it yet. So we'll see.
That's awesome. We we have Dan could probably speak to this better, but we have 72 women who are on our team. We have about almost 500 members on the Hot Lift Eat team, and Dan's wife and my wife are both part of it. But we have 72 women. We're pretty stoked that that number has continued to grow because we started off with just Caroline, Luke's wife, at the beginning, and a lot of these things that we've been talking about, wanting to get involved, and a lot of people wanting to be more hands on with where their food comes from and not knowing where to start and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe we should explore women in the wild hunt down there with Cam, Dan.
That's what I was thinking a little bit ago too. I was like, man, this sounds like a great opportunity for a woman in the wild rendezvous.
Plus, you and I should chaperone,
Oh,
just
I mean, yeah,
just so
you
we can
know,
be there as well.
yeah,
You don't
whatever. I
know
mean,
me. You got to make sure it's safe, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah,
gosh, that would be incredible. And then we could have Chris out,
Yep.
and
that'd be awesome.
Chef Holly. She's great. I
Yeah,
always say, anybody that eats Holly's food is blessed.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome.
I mean, I'll sleep on a cot outside, like whatever. I'll make sacrifices.
He'll sleep in the skid steer. It'll be all right.
we got an
Yeah,
RV. We got an RV. We'll pull it up.
perfect.
There's plenty of
Yeah.
room. We're not too
It's been
fussy.
really yeah, it's been really cool, and I'm sure Robin can say the same thing. Being a part of the Women in the Wild with Hunt Lift Eat, it's really cool to kind of see women. I mean, I don't know, of course, but like I can imagine it being really intimidating, right? Going into a hunt camp with a bunch of nasty, rowdy, stinky dudes, and my wife especially has just absolutely loved the Women in the Wild that we have a part of Hunt Lift Eat. Just being able to be in a little bit more comfortable environment and do their thing. It's been really beneficial. So that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and that's one thing, like it's hard to do anything, showing up and nobody looks like you,
Yeah.
right? And there's things that sometimes women don't, something happens, they don't want to discuss with the 20-year-old boy in the box line with them, and
Yeah.
like, and not to say, I know I'm really pushing like the having women and having kids and, out and first time hunters. And yeah, that's really important to me. But the guys that have been doing it for 30 years, they're important to me too, and
Yeah.
so that's one thing about like inclusivity that people are really pushing in the outdoor space. They're targeting women and kids and minorities, but and that's all so important, but so is my dad.
Yeah.
I think
Sure.
inclusivity means not targeting somebody just because they are a woman or just because they are XYZ. I want the middle-aged white guy too,
Yeah.
that's been doing it. And he just wants to come shoot a deer and have a good time and, go on a really memorable hunt. And so I just wanted to say that because, we have focused a lot on mentorship and getting first time hunters out. And I'm very passionate about that, but I also want everybody of all skill levels, not just novice, to feel like they can come out and hunt with me,
That's great news for Dan and I. So that we're welcome there too.
Well, you know what I mean.
No, I do. I do. And I'm not joking. And I think that's really important, right? Especially like inclusivity from the spectrum of hunters, right? In everybody in the sphere, right? Because you've seen this, Dan has seen this, I've seen this. Sometimes hunters we can be our own worst enemies, right? Across nationally, right? Across the country. And if you get on any Facebook forum, any Facebook hunting forum, it's like people just tear each other apart, right? Yeah.
Oh, I've been ripped.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. When I first wanted to go Western hunting, I asked something and I was like, never again am I posting on here. Sorry for trying to learn something. But that's really important, right? Like inclusivity means everybody, right? And you can tailor those experiences for everybody and what they're looking for. And I think that's really commendable.
Well, I appreciate that. We try, we're always learning. But being smaller and being able to make those changes quickly for whoever it may be to make sure that they're comfortable. That's really why I left like the big corporate hunting world and went something a little smaller that we can, mold into what it needs to be and what we feel like is right. Treat people right, treat animals right, have a good time, make a little bit of money if we can, then we're in good shape. I don't need jets flying in.
That's good. That's not in Dan and I's budget, so that'll be.
Oh, me neither. Me neither. I used to greet customers coming in on their jet, picking them up in a Jeep. I've never done it. Totally different world.
Yeah, that's wild.
Not my thing.
More of a rent a U-Haul and go antelope hunting in Wyoming kind of crew.
Island back, yeah.
Yeah, I got a 2012 Jayco. I like to tote that thing around, but I would like to do the helicopter hog hunting now.
That seems like a blast.
Never done it, but we've caught deer out of a helicopter with a net gun, that's a whole other thing. But still haven't done the helicopter hog hunt. It's on the list. So
yeah, sign me up. That sounds like a good time.
Yeah,
we flew over an hour really quick. Cam, I didn't get through half of the notes I had written down. We might have to do a part 2 here, but yeah, that flew. Super appreciate you being on here. But before we close it out here, what's coming down the pipe? Anything new you want to share? Any info the folks need to know about prime time?
Yeah, we're booking up really fast. I'll be blunt. So if you're interested in hunting with me, please feel free to reach out. Whitetail season kicks off for us first day of October, and we hunt through February. We have some beautiful deer, families, corporate, solo, special events. If you want to bring the whole family out, just give me a shout. But it's getting packed out. So, but we have big things coming. So you guys watch out for social media. We'll be launching some more of those tailored hunting experiences. Um, I've already had so many people reach out for another women's hunt, so we're gonna try our hand at the men's whitetail hunt pretty quick
Heck
here.
yeah. Heck yeah. Put us on the short list. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Where can folks find you guys on social media and online?
So we are primetineranch.com, and that's Tine, Tine. Same on Instagram, primetine_ranch. You can find me on Instagram at Kam Wildlife. So you can reach out to us pretty much anywhere. It's me. My phone number is on the website. If you reach out to Primetime or me, you'll be talking with me. I don't have a team yet. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
Yeah. But yeah, I would love to hear from anybody that's interested. Y'all are all welcome.
Awesome. Well, we love that. Hopefully we'll get down there and get serious and make it happen. Dan, you got any closing thoughts for us, man?
I don't, Cam. I appreciate you taking the time to come on with us. I'm really intrigued, and yeah, hopefully we can make it down there and do something sometime soon.
Yeah, please just let me know if y'all are ever looking for something or just need a place to crash. Y'all are welcome. We got plenty of space for the team if y'all just wanted to come check the ranch out. And y'all's ladies are always welcome. And I'm serious. If y'all want to come help me catch deer, come on.
Oh,
I
that'll be
am
so awesome.
100% in for that. That
Yeah,
sounds like a ride.
let's do it. But again, thank you guys for having me. Sorry I was long-winded and took us over the time.
Oh, it's
But,
perfect.
but yeah, I had a great time and it's been a pleasure.
Perfect. Well, we really appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Listeners, as always, appreciate the hell out of you guys. Go check out Cam and all the good work she's doing over at Prime Time. And we'll talk to you guys next week.